Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Josh Snipes, and if you like operator guides, map guides, any sort of guides sort of for beginner to intermediate players, then you are in the right place. I try to do all these tips and tricks that way you and I can both learn and get better at the game together. Now, without further ado, this is going to be another installment of Siege Academy. If you didn't already see that from the title, basically what Siege Academy is and what these videos are, I take topics and stuff from Siege Academy, which is a subreddit, and I will try to answer my questions basically how I would comment on them if I were to just answer them on Reddit and not put them in a video format. Also, lastly, if you have any questions, make sure to join my Discord, ask me any questions there. I'll usually write you back, and sometimes it might end up in a video depending if I think it is good enough to really talk about and kind of go over and explain. But without further ado, let's hop right into Siege Academy number 3. So the first question comes from my great friend Baron. Now he asked how to get into comp Siege, kind of how to practice with the team. I'm just gonna go over how to get into the Siege Esports scene because right now it is really expanding. So there's opportunities for new people and new players to get involved and help out in all sorts of different ways. So I'm gonna go over 3 different ways you can pretty much get involved, and I'm gonna go over with sort of the production of Siege. So any matches that you watch, the casting, the observing, that kind of thing. I'm gonna go over coaching / analyst roles, and then the actual player roles and how to find a team and kind of how to get your team from point A, which is nothing, to point B, which is at least getting involved in amateur leagues, or at least maybe even getting in a challenger league if you guys are that good. A lot of this is actually going to revolve around getting into what is known as T3, or those amateur leagues. And the reason I'm saying this is because when you're looking at, say, getting into production, that goes anything from observing. So when you're watching a pro league match, the actual person watching the game in the third person who switches between all the different cameras, that's considered the observer. Now you also have the casters, so if you watch Pro League, Kix, Santero, Emzo, Milos, and they all do a great job, but getting into a T3 or getting into an amateur league that doesn't already have a caster allows you the opportunity to kind of learn and sort of replicate what you see in when you're watching Pro League. And that's pretty much what you want to do at the beginning, is sort of replicate what you see and get a gist for how you feel and how comfortable you really are, or even if you like casting in general. Casting's not really for everyone, because not everyone is super comfortable in front of a mic, or they might get awkward during dead spaces or anything like that. But that's just something to keep in mind. Amateur leagues are great for that because they're always looking for new talent. It is voluntary positions, so a lot of times you're going to get random matches that you might not know, and that's a great way to learn. As for the next topic of this, it's going to be looking at the players. Now, if you think you're ready to actually head on into that comp scene, you think you can do it, there's 2 ways you can do it. The first one is you and 4 other friends can create a team and go play Go4s on ESL's website, or join amateur leagues and go into their qualifiers and try to make it and see if you can get into those leagues. That's probably the best way if you can, but if you have friends that aren't that good or you don't want to play with them, go onto these amateur leagues Discords and go into, most of them have looking for player or looking for team, and you can possibly find people who also want what you want and want to create a team, and they want to be able to develop and become better at the game and work together as a team all together. So look for those kinds of posts and just go try out. And by trying out, normally you either play with them in a scrim or you'll play with them in a ranked or some sort of setting like that, where they can get a gist for who you are, how you play, what you do, and all that good stuff. So lastly, you have sort of that coaching and analyst role that you might see on different teams. A lot of pro league teams have both, but sometimes you might have one or the other, and that's completely okay. A lot of times a coach is usually more involved with the actual strat making and sort of working with the players and developing different things for the players and to help the individual players and the team as a whole, versus I feel like the analyst is more looking at VODs of other teams that you're probably going to be playing. So let's say you make it into those amateur leagues. You're basically going to be looking at VODs and trying to figure out how the other team works and what they do, what they ban, what the maps they like playing, what maps they don't like playing, what operators they play, what operators they'll ban out, that kind of thing. And you'll end up, as you do this more and more, you'll get better and better because you'll start to realize where you're lacking, what you need to improve on, and sort of how much time all this stuff takes. So you start to get a lot better at this as time goes on. But basically, it follows the same thing as the players do. You try to find a team who might or might not need a coach. A lot of times, if you end up getting a coach on these T3 teams that are just developing, it might be a lot more hectic than trying to get onto an established team. I would definitely, if I were you, try to get onto more of an established team that's been here for at least a while, so that way you're not completely new and then you get stuck with a team that just breaks up all of a sudden. So the next topic comes from SC2 Frago, and it's basically team roles. I'm going to leave this up if you guys want to read the rest of it, but basically he's asking for both sides, sort of what does entry fragger mean? What does anchor mean? What does support mean? What does roamer mean? What do all these things mean? There's such a crazy amount of information that this game has that you forget that not everyone knows this stuff. So basically, I'm going to go over this really quickly, but basically an entry fragger, think of your Ashe, Sophia, people who get in the building first, who usually get the opening kills on the round, who do what is called fragging, so getting all the kills is pretty much their job, versus they're supported by your supports, who are typically your hard breachers, so Hibana, Thermite, and then the other supports will usually be like Thatcher or Maverick or Glaz or anything like that, where they're going to drone you in because they're not necessarily towards the beginning minute of the round. Usually their goal is to open up a wall or pretty much set up on site to take site to set up the execute for site. Now you have this sort of in between, which is called your flex roll. This is typically going to be like your Capital, your IQ, your Buck Sledge. They don't always enter, but they don't always support. They can kind of go in between. Now, flex roll is typically a role that you just will fill, and it depends on what your team needs. You might run another support, you might run another entry fragger. It really depends on how you play each op and what you do with them. As for defense, you have your roamer. Now, there's deep roaming and shallow roaming. I went over this in another video, but really quickly, shallow roaming is typically you're right outside of the site. You're not directly in it, but you're right outside of it or right above it. You're able to get back into it if something were to go down, if an execute started to go down. Deep roaming, you're usually on the other side of the map or too far above that you can't even get down. There's no hatches or anything for you to rotate down, and usually you're going to get picked off or killed if you don't do your job and waste a lot of time. But basically, that's the point of a roamer, is to waste a lot of time or at least sort of stop for them from gaining ground on the attacking side. Next, you have your defenders, who basically your anchors. You think of Echo and Maestro, those are your hard anchors. You have Smoke, that's a great anchor also. Basically people who are going to be sitting on site because they have utility that's only useful for holding down site, or at least holding down to make sure that the diffuser doesn't go down. So Smoke's a great job and a great example for that. He usually has a shotgun, SMG-11, and his smoke canisters. Great job at holding down the site for your team. So the next topic comes from Rushy40, and it basically, what is the purpose and how to use Vigil. So Vigil's an interesting op because he's one of the few ops that I feel like he has a very selfish utility in terms of if you die with it, it was never going to help anyone to begin with. I mean, you can kind of think of Alibi might also have more of that selfish utility. It doesn't really help out the team, but if he dies, you don't have his utility anymore. Versus at least with Jaeger, if he dies and he's put his ADSs down, you still have the ADSs to work with, and they still help you. So Vigil's been in an interesting spot though, because there's been a lot of roamers that have outshined him, and I think that's just kind of the deal. When metas change, things happen. Although Vigil's guns are very good, he has impacts, his ability allows him to not get droned out, but at those lower ranks and even just in ranked in general, a lot of people don't drone that much, so it ends up not really being useful unless you can really frag out with his guns, because guns are very good. They shoot just like a laser, so you don't have to worry about. The SMG-12 is a great backup to have, not a very good primary unless you're in super close quarters, but honestly, his basically name of the game for him is just to frag out. That's basically what all you can do with him, because his gadget's not going to help your teammates out, honestly, in any way, shape, or form. He's kind of like Knock. But that's basically what Vigil is, what his purpose is. A lot of times he roams on his own, and he usually will go out for flanks and stuff because you might not be able to see him on the drone. I think that he'll probably get a buff in the near future, at least in the next 6 months, because he is sort of lacking that teamwork and team ability and sort of that way that he works with his team. He is more of a lone wolf, but I feel like he still just is not really in the best spot that he could possibly be in right now, but I guess we'll see in the coming months. So for the last topic of this video, we have how do I play Pulse. Now, if you've never played Pulse before, he's probably one of the weirdest operators to sort of get used to. I feel like his gadget just doesn't click right for everyone, especially given the fact that it's heartbeats and what does all this mean. But basically, there's two different ways you can play Pulse. The first way is sort of that intel gathering role. You're not necessarily off-site because the C4s are also useful to stop the defusal, and I think that a lot of times when you're playing on bank, you might use them in this exact way. So I find that's when it's most useful, is when you're gathering intel for your teams. Say they're taking upstairs and you want to just tell your team exactly where they are and sort of let information go out so that way someone can maybe flank up. That's a great way to play Pulse. Now, the second way that you can actually play Pulse is sort of the predator stalking its prey style, so more of a roaming style, more of that flanking style. And a lot of times, to give you a great example, when I play Pulse, say on Border, and the site is Armory Lockers and Archives, I will normally go downstairs and play downstairs for the majority of the game. Normally, I'll start out in custom, so that way if anyone gets into CCTV, I can see for them right away. Or if I don't ever end up seeing anyone and I don't end up shooting anyone, I'll usually move under the site, so that way if they do start to plant, I'll be able to throw C4 up because I have the intel and because I have the C4 and all the gadgetry. I can do it. Now, his ump is a little lackluster, so you do have to be worried about that. But overall, I think that the only time if you had to use an ump, just shoot him in the head. It sounds a lot simpler than it really is, but you're just going to end up having to shoot him in the head. It really is a laser if you get the recoil pattern down, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. Just try to aim for the head when you're going to try to kill someone, and you can also shoot people from below with Pulse, so that's also a very useful way that I've used Pulse, especially if you lose your C4 early on by not getting a kill, or even if you do get a kill, and you can still use his gadget to give intel to your team. And that's the name of the game, really, is intel. That's where we're in right now, and him being a 3-speed, it makes it even easier. Anyways, guys, let me know if you have any questions down below, or join the Discord, ask any questions. We have a bunch of people that'll answer there also, so maybe you'll get a faster answer on there than me putting it in a video. But that's gonna wrap things up for today. This is gonna be Josh Snipes signing off.